Greetings, everyone. I go by the name at Chazzy Pop or Chazzy Pop online for quite some time now. And in fact, on my Instagram page, you can find me at Chazzy Pop. My name is C.A. Fenderson, for a few of you who know me. But I wanted to just come on here and see if I can casually speak about a couple of things on my mind, and hopefully I can get, other people to understand what I mean. And the last post that I made, it was interesting to me, so I decided to make this video and record myself talking. I want it to be as if we're just sitting down at the domino table and, chopping it up or playing cards or something like that, because I like to stay who I am and be myself no matter who's in front of me. So that's what I'm attempting to do right now. But I wanted to talk about the post that I made of the senator who was at the beach uh, on her handstand, and she was twerking, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I wanted to shed some light on why I posted that and what I believe came to me after I was thinking about it. So let me just read what I wrote. I mean, a lot of people are taking a look at the video of her. A lot of guys are liking it for obvious reasons, if you like that. But this is what I wrote. I think a lot of people have missed. It says, nobody wants the queer legislation that teaches children in school how to have same-sex relationships, so she does it right here. Her claim is that no one called her bills forward, and now we see why. Now, there's nothing wrong with telling people who you want to be, but this is the same as the Protestants who pushed their religion and language on the indigenous children in the 18th century. The only way this is possible is when the forces that put money behind campaign agendas fool the citizens into believing these are your candidates. I told you all not to vote for these heathens for the last time. Pure and evil intent. I rest my case. Hashtag Senator Mack. Hashtag coonery. Hashtag queer baiting. Hashtag senator. So people probably didn't take a look at that. They just probably saw her twerking or whatever she's doing there. But this is what I wanted to really talk about. I want to talk about the fact that this land that we're standing on, if you're here in the United States, so-called United States or whatever, it's been under siege for a while from the tyranny and the indigenous people that were once here in this land have been under siege. And I wanted to point out why this post, to me, I had to really speak about it a little bit more. And I had to make sure that I was able to resonate what I was saying with everybody when it comes to the point that it's not anything different than when the settlers came here and the Protestants forced the indigenous children to learn their language and their religion. See, a lot of us don't understand that in order for the people who are taking over to continue to rule, they must indoctrinate the children over and over again. Because what we noticed is it doesn't take a lot of generations for people to forget who they are or where they come from. I can tell you that right now. I mean, how many of us learned or tried to learn Swahili growing up? How many of us remember that language? How many of us are actually teaching our children that? Not a lot. So it could take maybe 2, 3 or 4 generations for you to forget your tongue and forget, your way. and just totally forget what your upbringing was, and who your ancestors were. So my point is this: we've been under siege for almost 5 centuries. And let me explain. The King James Bible was translated. You picked up a King James Bible, the old Bible, and you might scratch your head and try to understand, the language, but that it's Old English. It has different characters, and some letters that are in the English language now aren't in that language back then. But it's called Old English, or whatever you want to call it. But I just want you to understand that what we are actually considering English is very, very modern. Meaning it wasn't that long ago before that language was brought over to these lands. And that's very significant, because the English language that we know of today derived from multiple tongues, multiple languages, and multiple origins of people. And what I mean by that is it was crafted in a majestic type of way through sorcery and through spells in order to make the people who are learning this basically hypnotized by the words that they were taught. So the language that we're speaking, and the language that I'm speaking to you now, is nothing more than a spell. So when you see the Protestants and the so-called religious folk come over here and forcefully teach the indigenous children their language and their religion, that was the most diabolical thing I can think of, besides physically doing something wrong to another person. To strip them from their language and what they believed was one of the most disastrous things ever. Now, I think some of you know where I'm heading with this. But for those who are like me and want to find resources and where I got this, I want to just point back to what I said earlier. I just want to keep this as if we're just hanging out at the table and talking. I don't want to have to really find the resources, because I've done that before, and I just wanted to make this a quick video about what I've noticed. And I want to backtrack a little bit about what I was saying about the English language, to the point where when we adapt legislation and the majesty of laws in this so-called country, which is nothing more than a heap of corporations, we give them power over the magic that they bestow on us. What I'm saying is, when we speak this language and when we read the laws that they so-called create and impose on us, we give them our power. We give them the ability to cast their spells on us. And the cycle just continues over and over again. So that's why it's very interesting when I see them always bring up the children, always bring up the kids, because they know that people my age and my elders, they're not going to be here forever, of course, and we're not going to be at a point where we're going to focus on taking away what is embedded into the psyche of our children before we leave. So before we leave and while we're still here, they're going to pass every single law and legislation, every single magic spell they can to keep the cycle going. And that's exactly what this senator is trying to do. Maybe she doesn't know it. Maybe she does. Maybe it's not even on purpose. And maybe it's innocent. Maybe you feel like, okay, well, you're just saying a bunch of stuff. You're not making sense. You're just speculating. Okay. And let's say it does get passed and, a lot of people aren't really worried about, their young child, 6, 7 years old, learning how to have sex with the same gender, or even learning how to have sex anyways. Maybe they're fine with that. I'm not. I'm not sure that you are. And I'm not sure that a majority of the people who they say are for that can't even convince you that it's okay. You follow me? But what I'm getting at, the core principle of my argument is this. It doesn't matter what this legislation is. It doesn't matter that it's for queers, for gays, for whoever. That's not the problem. The problem is we're under siege. And it will never stop. It might be this today, and it might not even pass. And I believe that's why she's doing this, twerking stuff, because nobody's going to call forward any of her bills. So she's got to get attention, right? Well, she got my attention, not the way that she wants, but she got my attention because I know that once we leave, we tend to leave our children vulnerable to these heathens. Now, I'm not calling her a heathen or anything that, she does evil, or anybody who believes in what she's doing, part of the occult or the demiurge or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's going to be something else. And until we understand the fact that we're under siege in our own land, it will continue to happen. They will try to indoctrinate our children for centuries and centuries after we're gone. So what do? Well, I for one say that if you see these laws that are popping up and you're like, wait, that's not right. What are they doing? And you see these so-called politicians with all these different coats, COAT, and you see them two-faced and lying in your face, don't be surprised, because you're under a spell, and the spell is the English language. These laws, the magistry, they're nothing more than spells. We're all spellbound by the English language, which hasn't even been a language that long. This so-called language that we're speaking is nothing more than spells. And all these so-called laws are inside the spell book. So that makes me believe that in order for us to break the spells, we have to start to think for ourselves. That makes me believe that in order for us to protect our youth and our seeds and our offspring, We must take them out of these programs and this indoctrination. What do you guys think?